Oh my God. Hello everyone. Hi vlog channel. So this is the first ever episode of my brand new podcast called Self-Made CEO. I am including a video portion to this podcast. So every single week when I record the episode, I'm actually sitting down and filming myself recording the episode, and I'm going to upload them right here. It's gonna be interesting because a lot of times I'm in a sweatshirt, I'm at home working, I look like a bum, and that's just how it is. No judgments here. This is a judgment-free zone. If you guys prefer the video version over the audio, here you have it. So every single Thursday, I'm gonna be uploading the video portion of my podcast episode right here. So I've been posting all over social media, but if you guys didn't know, I just launched on May 15th, yesterday, a podcast called Self-Made CEO. This has been a business and a brand in the works for me for almost a year now. This is the first element of the business that is now live, and really this podcast is for you guys. I want to empower you and to inspire you and motivate you to take control of your own life, your own happiness, success, relationships, and just live the dream life that you desire. Because in my heart, in my mind, I don't just believe, I know that anything is possible. Any desire that you have in life, any outcome, any success, any achievement, you can do. So the whole point of this podcast is to really impart on you guys a lot of the business and life lessons that I've had to learn so far, and also to share with you some of the struggles I go through daily and how we can kind of work together to overcome them. So I'm on my journey, you guys can be on your journey. Let's together transform into 2.0 versions of ourselves. Let's become self-made CEOs. This doesn't have to be just about business. This can be very much about business. If you wanna excel in your career, if you wanna change career paths, if you want to break away from your 9-to-5 and start a new business or job, this is definitely for you. If you aren't in that business space, or you want to take these lessons and apply them more to your overall life and not just business, that 100% works too. Everything that we're gonna talk about is applicable to life, to love, to happiness, to success, to money, to business. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on this journey. Thank you for all the amazing support. I would so appreciate if you guys do listen, please give me a rating and a review. It really helps with iTunes, the algorithm, and I just want to help people, and I want this to spread, not for my sake, but for your guys' sake. I want as many people to be able to listen to this as possible. So the more we can bump that up on Apple, the better. I'm gonna leave all the links to the podcast down below, the main link, the Apple link, the Spotify link, and the Stitcher link. And yeah, you can pretty much listen wherever podcasts are available. So we're gonna go right ahead and get into this episode. Another little side note, I do write notes during the episode to make sure that I'm remembering some of the stuff that I want to talk about, so little bullet points. And in order for me to really focus on kind of what I'm saying in the audio, a lot of times I'm not looking at the camera, so that's just kind of how this is. But again, if you prefer to put on a YouTube video versus a podcast so that you can kind of see me and be there with me, totally cool. So enough rambling. I just wanted to give a little bit of an intro. Without further ado, let's get into episode 1, which is Start Thinking Like a CEO. So let's get right on into the podcast. Hello, you guys. Welcome to the very first episode of Self-Made CEO. I cannot believe this is finally here. I've been wanting to do this for so long. I am your host, Adrian Finch. And you know what? We're just gonna jump right on into it. In today's episode, we are gonna start off by talking about the only 3 things that you need to know in order to achieve success in your business, in your relationships, your finances, your happiness, any other aspect of life, as well as what to expect from this podcast. So 3 things. Only 3 things that you must know and accept and understand in order to be successful. It's as easy as that. I just want to congratulate you for being here, for taking the first step in this transformation to become a self-made CEO, to become in charge of your own life, your destiny, your happiness, to really live the life that you're supposed to live and that you want to live, your dream life, to achieve anything that you could possibly want, have any desire fulfilled. This is the first step in transforming into that version of yourself. So thank you for being here. I'm so excited for this journey. I'm so excited for you to be coming along with my journey as well. Now, before we begin, I want to make one thing clear to you guys, okay? I am not this unrelatable billionaire CEO of a Fortune 500 company. If you think that everything I'm going to be talking about on this podcast is unattainable or a reach for you, then get ready to shift your mindset. What we're here to tell ourselves is that anything is achievable and possible. It doesn't matter if you have no time, no money, no resources, no connections, you have 5 kids. It doesn't matter if you're that person or if you grew up with wealth and you have a bunch of connections or you're already in your career. You can be at any phase or stage of your career, or you could be just starting your career. And I promise you that this podcast is going to unlock your greatest potential and you will be able to achieve anything that you want. You also shouldn't listen if you think it won't be helpful because I'm not that billionaire CEO. I've told people the name of this podcast several times and I've gotten a lot of, but Adrian, you aren't a CEO. Damn right I am. I run my own business. I decide when and how I'm going to make money. I decide the direction my business goes. I work where I want, when I want. I have completely built something that I am in charge of. I don't work for anyone else. So how am I not a CEO? And a self-made one at that. Now, I'm not trying to brag or anything. I am still on my journey. I am still really, really launching my career at this point. But what made me decide to sit down and start bringing you guys along and start helping others transform the way that I have is because once I realized that I could do and achieve anything in life, I couldn't help but want to share that because it is the most amazing breakthrough you will ever have when you realize, oh my God, I can literally do anything. I don't have to be afraid to take risks. I don't have to be afraid of failing. I can do anything. I can have any career. I can have anything that I desire. So I get it. People can be skeptical. I was skeptical. It's only natural. I was probably the most skeptical person I had even known. And part of this whole journey has been to train myself to trust more. And we thrive on proof and logic and credibility, which we can obviously get more into in later episodes. But the point being, if you can listen to this podcast with an open mind, give these tools a chance and trust the system, trust what I'm saying, you will absolutely transform your mindset, your attitude, your goals, who you are. So let's transform together, okay? Why not? And this is just, we're making a 2.0 version of yourself, all right? We're not changing who you are, but we are becoming the person we need to become in order to have this success that you want. So this shift in mindset will make you happier, more successful, and will lead you to make serious amounts of money if that is one of your goals. So a little bit about me, I'm just like you. I'm still on my journey. Yes, I've had major successes, but I've had failures and I've had realizations. And through this podcast, I want to impart on you the many things that I've already learned and implemented into my own life that have pretty much allowed me to get this far in my business. But I also want to take you on the journey that I'm still on. There will only be more growth and success from here. And I'm still learning things every single day that I know you guys can apply to your own businesses and your own lives. So my goal is for you to leave every episode feeling inspired, motivated, informed, and most of all, empowered to get out there and create your own success because it is possible for anyone anywhere in the world, no matter how old you are, how much money or resources you do or don't have, how busy you are. Your only job is to believe that. That is your only job, okay? All you have to do is believe that that is possible. It's really as easy and fun as that, I promise. And if you're sitting there thinking, what? That's crazy. It's not, and you will only find out by doing it. So first of all, it's important to understand how I got to this point. Since I was young, I was creative and I knew I wanted to help people. I still do. Whether it was making someone laugh or teaching or giving advice, I was totally in entertainment growing up. I performed random. I was in a band. I played trumpet. I was in a choir. I was on a dance team. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do, okay? But growing up, one thing remained the same. I was driven to succeed, but had a really hard time focusing and staying committed to things, which I realized later was because I had severe ADHD. And it really did inhibit my ability to kind of stick to one thing, which was tough because I really craved success and I craved accomplishing things and making money and all these things that people my age didn't necessarily think about yet. Now, I just want to give a quick side note. I keep saying the word success, but I want to clear up right now that that word can mean so many different things. It doesn't just mean wealth and money and nice cars and houses. It can mean whatever definition you assign to it. It can mean just achieving the goals that you set out for yourself. It can mean anything. So when I say that, I'm not trying to do this whole we're going to get rich quick scheme. No, this is about shifting your mindset. This is about becoming the person you need to be. So I tended to go against tradition, if you will. I went to film school. I was a film major. I didn't work a 9-to-5 after college right away. I did maybe one 9-to-5 for a year. And then I immediately was like, heck no, I cannot do this corporate life. I cannot sit around just waiting for someone else to basically allow me to be successful. I am going to build this thing on my own. I knew that right away. So I hit a point where I stumbled across several I can't speak. This whole podcast thing is going to be interesting. I stumbled across several successful entrepreneurs' stories, and I realized that it's perfectly okay to not conform to the system. And I think that's the very first biggest breakthrough that I had, was realizing, hey, you know what? You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. Just because you don't fit with this 9 to 5 office, same routine system does not mean that you are any less motivated or driven or successful. It doesn't mean anything negative about you. People have different styles, different learning styles, different working styles, and that is okay. So that was the first thing I realized, is that society has created this construct for us, this 9 to 5, Monday through Friday work week. But if you think about it, who came up with that? Like, where did that even originate from, you know? Society created that and said, this is the way you got to do it. Society said, oh, we need to go to college and have a good major and get a good job. Well, okay, there are plenty of people who don't go to college who are successful, right? So obviously I advocate for college, but that's a whole nother topic of conversation. Both my parents are actually psychologists, which is funny, and had tried to instill the power of positive thinking in me since I was a child. But what I realized is it never fully clicked. I did have the mentality that things were just going to work out, which probably did come from them. Like, I was always that kid and that girl that was just like, no, things just will work. Like, if I got rejected from a job, I thought, nope, it's okay. One door closes, another one opens. That came naturally to me. And so that was definitely a good foundation. And I know not everyone has that foundation, which is something I definitely want to help people with coming to terms with. You know, rejection doesn't mean failure, and failure, in fact, is a construct that we make up in our minds and doesn't exist. So then I had an insanely aha moment. I'm sure you've heard of moments like these. Well, I had one, okay? It was after watching the movie The Secret last year, and I realized 3 very, very important things. And that's where we're going to start getting into these 3 things, the only 3 things you need to understand, to know in order to be successful. But I just want to take a second. I had this aha moment, okay, where all of a sudden, it was as if everything my parents had ever told me, every experience I had ever had, just came full circle and just clicked. If you have ever experienced something like this, you know how incredible it feels. You feel like you just became God. You feel like you've unlocked this insane potential, and all you want to do is just get started and make progress. So I had that moment last year, and I have never been happier. It was funny too, because when I had this aha moment was actually in one of my lowest points. I had been struggling. The business I created on YouTube and on the internet had been going through a really rough patch, and I was actually struggling to pay my bills for the first time since becoming a freelancer. And, you know, I always knew when I started doing freelance and I started my own business, I knew, you know what, this ebbs and flows. There will be ups and downs. I always need to have a savings, and I always need to be prepared, because one day, you know, it could just not go as well as it's been going before. And it's not necessarily because I'm doing anything wrong. It's just how these types of businesses can go. You got to just be prepared, and you have to not let it get you down. So I was in one of those kind of low points, so to speak. I actually had to have my mom pay one of my credit card bills, and I paid her back. And it's funny because I went from having $30,000 in my savings the year before to almost being in debt and being scared. And you know what? It was all because of external factors, and that we'll get into this later. It wasn't actually anything I was doing. And so I just kept a really strong mentality to not let my income at the time not let it define my skill or my work or the value of the work I was doing, because I knew it wasn't that. It was a market shift that happened. It was an algorithm shift online and YouTube. So this aha moment was very powerful for me, because it was as if all of a sudden all this stress and negativity and worry about money, about my business, am I doing the wrong thing? It all just disappeared. It all disappeared. And it's so insanely powerful when something like that happens. And the thing is, all along, ever since I started this business, again, I anticipated the ebbs and flows, and they really didn't bother me that much. This was the first time that I actually was a little bit scared. And it's natural. It's totally natural to be scared. It's like if you showed up to work for 2 months and then didn't get paid, and you're like, excuse me, I'm supposed to get paid. Where's my paycheck? It's kind of what happened. Back to the 3 things. These were the 3 things that over time I've realized are the most important things to understand, okay? Number 1, we are absolutely responsible for where we're at in life right now, and subsequently for everything that happens to us and all that we be, think, do, desire. We are responsible. Only us. So let me just explain that a little bit, okay? This is a really, really tough pill for people to swallow, me included when I first heard it. For someone to just say, hey, you are responsible for everything that's happened to you. Oh, you got dumped? Okay, well, you're responsible for that. Oh, you stepped in a puddle? Well, you're responsible for that. It sounds mean, it sounds harsh, it sounds scary, but what you have to think about is not so much you are responsible for that action occurring. Because no, you can't help if someone rear ends you. You can't help if someone in your life dies of cancer. It's that you assign the meaning that life's events and circumstances have. So you're defining, what does this having happened to you mean for you? What does it mean about you? What does it say about you? Are you letting this moment in your life, are you letting growing up poor and on the streets define your ability to be successful? What I find is that people tend to not only blame external factors for, their lack of success or money, but they also tend to assign things that have happened to them in the past as reasons why. They define themselves. They say, for example, if a loved one dies of cancer, which is of course an awful, terrible thing, you might be thinking, well, how on earth am I responsible for that? And the answer is you aren't responsible for them dying from cancer, but you're responsible for what meaning you are going to assign to that. If you let that be a roadblock, if you let it define you as someone bad things happen to, that's on you and no one else. You see what I mean? So if you're someone who grew up with not a lot of money and, you think rich people are greedy and you don't believe you can ever have that much money because, you never had that much growing up. So you'll just never be rich. That's something that you have assigned. That's a belief that you have created. And I think often we get in the subconscious habit of doing this to ourselves and we can't help it. And it's because we have what are called fixed mindsets about things in life. I'm sure you've heard people say this, just having a fixed mindset about something, which means how you were raised, the opinions of those around you, stereotypes and stigmas. We develop fixed mindsets about certain things where it's very hard to change what we think about something, and it's because of external factors. If you're raised with your parents telling you like, well, you can't afford that, like we can't afford that, like we can't have nice things, then you grow up and you have this fixed mindset that you don't deserve nice things or that you can't afford things or that you will never be able to afford things. And the reality is that that's unfair and that's not true. And so part of this as well is training ourselves out of those fixed mindsets. And there are certain strategies for how to do that we'll get into in later episodes because it's very powerful once you are able to get rid of those fixed mindsets. I've had to do that. I'm still working on some, but it's incredibly powerful when you can break away from those. The point is, if you can understand and accept that you are the only one responsible for where you are at in life right now, and for every action and event and belief that you create is you. It's not the weather, it's not the religion, it's not the city you live in, it's not rules you have on you, it's not the amount of time you have. No, it's you and only you. Then that is step one. Number two is that I touched on this a little bit in the beginning. Everything we know has been societally constructed, meaning we are programmed from birth to think a certain way, right versus wrong, good versus evil, but we are capable of constructing a new paradigm and worldview. So this sounds like a cult that I'm brainwashing you. No, I'm trying to get you to see the way that the world works and just think about it. I'm not telling you the way that the world works is wrong or right. I just want you to simply sit there and think about the way that the world works and think about, why does it work that way? Who decided it was going to work that way? Okay. The reason I like to think about this and kind of question it, not in a way of saying it's bad, but just to question it, to question, okay, let's think about this for a second, is because a lot of times you'll realize that the way certain things are in the world don't have to be that way. And it's okay to not have them be that way. And I think people are judged and people are hated on for doing things against the norm. And we need to right now just wipe that judgment completely away. And that means the way that you judge other people as well. If someone else is successful, but they didn't go to college and you're judging them because they didn't go to college, well, maybe it's time you stop judging them. Because there isn't one way to do everything. And that's a whole nother topic, talking about kind of like the way that we judge people and this mirror effect of like us wanting to attract certain things into our lives and how we need to act in order to do that. But that's a whole nother topic. The only way for you to transform into this powerful, successful CEO that has a totally different mindset is to train yourself out of a lot of things that you've probably spent your whole life learning, a lot of things that people instill in us from a young age. It is entirely possible for you to transform your own thinking. And after this podcast, you will be a different person. You'll be a 2.0 version of yourself, but you'll be a different person because you will have a different mindset. You will have the mindset that, hey, there isn't one path. I can be successful doing something that Billy, Bob, Sue, and Jordan didn't do. You know what I mean? So there is much more to changing your worldview than I can possibly fit into one podcast episode. So we'll get into ways to do this more in future episodes. But the first step is just understanding what this means and why we think the way we do. Just questioning it. Well, why do I have this belief? Or like for me, like I have a hard time. One of my biggest flaws is assigning of value to my work. So charging someone an amount of money because I always feel bad. I'll be like, oh, well, like that's so expensive. Even though the value of my work is worth that. I have trouble, staying firm with that because I have empathy for people who maybe can't afford that price or think it's expensive. And I think about, well, why do I feel that way? Like, why do I feel bad charging an amount for something that's worth it when I go buy things that are totally not worth the price? So I think about that and I realize where it comes from. And I realize it comes from part of me growing up and when my parents got divorced, having to, be really careful with money and me having to struggle paying for things makes me feel empathetic towards someone who might be struggling to pay for my services. And it makes me want to give people discounts. And that first step of just understanding why we as a whole and you individually think the way you do, why we operate the way we do, why we have 9-to-5 work weeks, why do we work Monday through Friday, why are certain things the way they are in life and business. And when you realize that it is completely constructed based on what society has just been learning and doing for the past however many years, it's kind of cool to think that you can change it. You can change the way that you operate, and there are multiple pathways to get to a certain end goal. You don't have to follow the status quo. And that was a really powerful thing for me when I was working at a corporate job for a year and I realized I don't like this. This is not for me. And people were worried about me quitting. Like people were like, well, are you going to make money? Like, of course, my parents are naturally worried, but at the same time, they knew that I'd be fine. And I started making money immediately doing my own thing. And they were like shocked. They're like, wow, that was like so impressive. And it was because I quit that job knowing that there isn't one path. I knew that I could make money doing something else. That's that. And with this comes the bystander effect, which of course you guys have heard of, which is that there is a power in masses. And if you kind of take a second and notice, the more people operate a certain way, the more that way seems correct and normal, even if it's not. I'm sure you guys have seen viral videos online of like someone pretending to be famous and then a couple people go and take pictures of them and then some more people see them taking pictures and assume, oh, okay, there's someone famous, I should go take a picture. And then more and more people come and then paparazzi come and really that person's not even famous. That is a perfect example of the bystander effect. People hop on a train once it seems like the popular or good or right or normal thing to do. And that's just the way life works. So there's a reason why we have all these societal constructs. There's a reason we still have the 9-to-5 work week. It's because that's the thing that people think is normal and that's what most people do. Granted, we are of course moving more towards a lot more people are doing freelance or are self-employed now, which is really cool. I mean, obviously that's what I do, so I'm a big fan. But yeah, it's very interesting if you just kind of take a second and look around and start to notice the way that people behave and act and what is normal and what is constructed and why we're trained to act the way that we do and operate the way we do. And a lot of it is just human nature. It's crazy to think about, but it's powerful to think that we are capable of changing it. So I invite you to begin noticing things in the world around you that fit into society's current worldview. Opening your mind to this and understanding why society is working the way that it does now will help shift your thinking and create a new worldview for yourself. So that's part of what we're going to be doing here is creating this new worldview in which you operate the way that works best for you and it allows you to be incredibly successful, happy, fulfilled, etc. And number 3, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time, ever, ever, ever. This is like 100% my motto, is that you will see it when you believe it. Okay. You probably know the very popular quote, I'll believe it when I see it. Like when someone tells you that they're going to actually show up to a function and they're like known for ditching and you're like, I'll believe it when I see it. Like when you come, I'll believe that you're going to come. So
This is just switching that phrase around. You'll see it when you believe it. Meaning, absolutely anything, as I've said now like 5 times in this one episode, I'm sorry, anything you desire in life is possible to obtain. And once you know this, once you believe this and you actually truly believe it, you will unlock so much potential and achieve success. You, as I've said, you can be anything, anyone, do anything, become anything, learn anything that we have the willpower to learn. It's intimidating kind of to realize that humans have the willpower to do anything. For example, there are people out there who aren't happy with their bodies or the way they look, or they want to lose weight, they aren't in shape yet, and yet they have the willpower to do something about it. They're just not doing it. And they're struggling. I mean, they're genuinely struggling. They are very unhappy. They don't want to look that way. And yet they are not taking the action to do something about it. And it's very baffling because every human, I think, has this, and it kind of goes hand in hand with like negative feedback loops. It's like we go through these ebbs and flows, like I said before, but it's baffling to me as well. Like I'll sit there and be like, I need to wake up earlier. And then in the morning, when I'm sitting there in bed and my alarm goes off, I don't want to wake up. I don't want to get out of bed, even though I'm so upset at how I don't wake up early. So that always has been so puzzling to me, and something that's been really hard to understand how to break free from, I guess, how to kind of break into my willpower, like how to really use my willpower the way that I want to. So we're going to explore in this podcast why this happens. What is this internal battle and how do we overcome it? How do we want a change and actually will ourselves to make that change? Because we are capable of doing that. And it's just a matter of how. How do we do that? So those are the 3 things. And by the way, this last one is touching a little bit on some of the universal laws that I will be discussing in this podcast. So I like to incorporate mindset work into business because I believe it's so important. I think that 85% or more of like business and success in business has to do with mindset. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. And I want you guys to really have an open mind about it. I don't want you to be intimidated or thrown off by some of the things that might sound a little hippy dippy woo woo stuff, because to be honest, some of it is, and some of it is still new to me, but it is very powerful. And, realizing something as simple as the law of attraction, which is that, like attracts like, and what you put out there into the universe will come back to you. It really took me exploring those further to really believe that they're true. And the thing is, so this last one really goes with that. You will see it when you believe it, i.e. when you decide and believe, when you decide to know that you will achieve your goals, then you will. But you have to truly, truly believe it. And we're going to talk later on about how do you get to that point though? If you genuinely are like, there's no way I can make $1 million this year, how do you then actually believe that? And those are things we're going to talk about. Those are the action steps that we are going to take, is getting you to believe it. And honestly, it all starts with pretending you do. It starts with emulating the actual emotional reaction and the actual feeling that you would have if you made $1 million. How would it make you feel? Because the subconscious brain is what's controlling that. And all the subconscious knows is feeling, and how it doesn't know what's actually reality or what is your imagination. So if you are sitting there, and that's why people have vision boards, that's why people do meditation and visualize their goals, is because your subconscious will take that emotion, that way that you feel even just thinking about having your dream house or your dream car or $1 million. And if you can really put yourself in that moment and close your eyes and really think, okay, envision yourself with $1 million and how are you feeling and what have you bought and like all of that, your subconscious brain is taking that emotion and it's not knowing whether that's actually happening or not. And it's deciding to focus on that because that is giving you positive emotion. It's making you happy. So that's all just a little bit of touching on kind of these universal laws and kind of how we're going to incorporate that into business going forward in this podcast. So to recap, the only 3 things that you need to understand, 3 very important things. Number 1, you are the only thing responsible for where you're at in life right now. Only you. You got to stop blaming external factors. You got to stop complaining, well, everything bad happens to me. By acknowledging that bad things always happen to you, you're just bringing more bad things into your life. Number 2, everything we know has been constructed in one way or another. So we are fed information since birth. We have fixed mindsets that we are able to rid ourselves of. But everything, the way the world works, has been constructed to work that way. And we are capable of creating a new worldview and a new way to operate our lives. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And number 3, you will see it when you believe it. So I want you to start having an open mind and challenging yourself to stop doubting everything. Don't doubt that you can do a thing. Don't doubt whether you're going to be good at something. In fact, mostly we suck at things when we first try them, and a lot of it is just sticking with it and learning and growing and changing. And so I invite you to start really believing, or make a list, like your takeaway from this episode, because we're going to touch on this later. I keep saying that, but truly, there is so much content here, you guys. You guys are going to be, I hope that you're excited. Your takeaway from this, make a list of every desire that you want, everything. It doesn't matter how big, how small. It could be $1 million. It could be $100 million. It could be a new car, a new house. It could be a romantic, loving relationship, a child, whatever it is, write it down and just think about them. Just think about them. It's fun. It's actually fun. Imagine for a second you could have anything in the entire world you want, and not just material things. It could be anything. Write it down. Something I've realized talking to people in my life is that a lot of people who maybe complain about not being successful or hitting their goals, I say, well, what are your goals? What do you want? And they genuinely don't even know what they want. So how can you achieve what you want and focus on them and set your intent on getting those desires when you don't even know what the desires are? So step 1 is just figuring out, well, what do you want? And this is the fun part, because if you guys can accept and believe these 3 things, you are perfectly on the pathway to success, okay? We are transforming together here. This is a transformative journey, and I'm taking you along, and I could not be more excited, you guys. So that wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please feel free to leave me some feedback, messages. I want this podcast to be for you. This is not about me. This is about you guys. Please leave me feedback on iTunes reviews, Instagram. You can follow at The Self-Made CEO, or my personal at Adrian Finch. Please feel free to message, comment. I probably see comments more easily than messages, so maybe comment on either one of those. And please give me some feedback. I want to know what you guys want to hear about. I want to know what's helpful, what's not helpful. This is for you. And let's do this thing. Let's do this together. Let's inspire each other. Let's become self-made CEOs, okay? All right, you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you. Nope, I won't see you. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.